lot of people swear Epstein was a state-sponsored intelligence agent. I mean, there's a million theories. I'm sure you've heard all or most of them. Do you have an opinion on big picture-wise what the deal is?
So, just like many people, my opinion has shifted with the information that I received. And where I land now as the most realistic explanation for Jeffrey Epstein is that he may very well have been what's known as a confidential informant, a CI, for FBI. More than a Mossad asset, more than ever a CIA asset or anything like that, because he was actively involved in illegal activity. And he was actively involved in illegal activity supporting American citizens. That makes him the perfect kind of target for FBI to pursue, because FBI could grant him leniency or forgiveness for his crimes as long as he reported the crimes of other American citizens to the FBI. And then the FBI would be building cases on those American citizens. So when you think about the culmination of all the accusations as well as what evidence has been released, for me the most significant piece was when the Trump administration promised to release Epstein files and then reneged on that promise. When I saw that didn't make me think that there was some juicy bit on Donald Trump or juicy bit on anybody else in office. That made me feel like there was a government contractual obligation to protect Jeffrey Epstein, which really only exists when you have a national level confidential informant informing on American citizens.
But wouldn't that really only be relevant if he was alive?
No, because he's not the only confidential informant. Right now, living and walking around the United States are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of confidential informants who are American citizens. They have all been promised that their cooperation will never be publicly disclosed and that the crimes that they committed will be forgiven, right? So if you air Jeffrey Epstein's role as a confidential informant, you're breaking the promise to Jeffrey Epstein, but you're also showing all the other confidential informants in the world, you can't trust us to keep your promise either.
I mean, how do you reconcile the crimes that were committed, the people that he was involved with, and from what seems like optics-wise, no closure or consequence for any of that?
This is a question that people don't like the answer to, right? You have to let go of the moral value that you place on the crime. And you have to understand that to the law, crime is a crime. When you break a law, you go into a criminal court system, you're evaluated based on your peers, you're punished according to the judge. That's the way the process works. Crime is crime. It's not like there's good criminals and bad criminals. I know we call them white collar and blue collar. It's not like killing one person is any better or worse than killing 10 people. Right? Morally, we like to think it is.
People it is.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But seriously, like, we all like to pass a moral judgment on it, but in the eyes of the court system, you've committed a crime and now you need to be evaluated based off of the context and capacity of your crime. So while we look at Jeffrey Epstein and we think we know what his criminal activities were, even though not all of them have been disclosed to us, the truth is, if he was providing information that would bring 12, 15, 300 other people to justice, that's the kind of thing that the U.S. legal system is willing to forgive in exchange for giving us information on what the others are doing. Remember how you asked the question earlier about whether or not there's anything we can't do to protect our cover? The same thing is true for a confidential informant. There's not a lot of limitation on what they can and can't do to maintain the access that they have to illegal activity.
Well, you're right. I don't like that answer. The one thing that still puzzles me, or two things, I guess. The first thing is, with as loose-lipped as our United States government is in every facet, I mean, whether it's politicians in the House of Representatives, within the presidential cabinet, I mean, staffs, aides, you name it. Like, there are leaks everywhere all the time. It's like nobody can keep anything a fucking secret. So what is it about this that with the amount of people that have been involved, that there's such a high degree of competency in terms of keeping a lid on all of it to the degree with which they have. That to me is puzzling.
Most secrets are kept. I know it's easy to assume that there's many leaks. It's easy to assume that people can't keep a secret.
Because you're only hearing the ones that are actually leaked.
Exactly right. Yeah. There are so many more secrets that have never been leaked.
The second thing that I was going to mention is, do you think that he actually killed himself or was murdered?
This is another reason why I really like the kind of thread that says he was an FBI covert confidential informant, because if he was a confidential informant, that would explain the disappearance perfectly, because the Federal Bureau of Investigation would have the capacity to terminate the feed in the prison, evacuate him under pretext that would have no trail, and relocate him somewhere where people couldn't find him in witness protection. So it fits very nicely. I will say that aside from him being rescued by FBI, he was in a jail, he was in a prison for what is considered one of the most morally heinous crimes. All the other convicts absolutely despise people who abuse children, especially people who sexually abuse children. So he would be a prime target for any kind of violence inside the prison system.
So do you think he killed himself or no?
It's a tough one, because everything leads to the same kind of rational outcome. A man who thought he was safe, actually finding himself. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with somebody who was very wealthy, who lost a legal case and was going to prison, and the shit that goes through their head about, I should just kill myself, I should stop talking to my family, I'm as good as dead anyways, even when I get out, I'll never have access to my money or have access to my family, my life is over, why not just end it now? Like that is really what goes through their head, especially people who were at the top of their game, who are then brought to, a concrete box.
So that, from your perspective, there is a very real possibility that the FBI exfiltrated him out of prison and he's still alive.
Yeah, I mean, I see 3 equal probability outcomes that we just don't have enough information to land on. Somebody got him out of prison because they had the power and the promise to do so. The prison system turned against him and they killed him, and then they lied about it because inside of the prison system, of course you're going to kill a child rapist, right? Or he was so ashamed and he recognized he was just days away from being killed by the prison system anyways, that he decided to control it for himself.
Yeah.
It's a weird equal probability in all 3 areas.
The 2 things that make me skeptical on the FBI, well, 1, the FBI getting him out, and 2, that there's something else going on, is that, again, I know you're saying that most secrets are kept, but something this high profile and the sheer number of people that would have had to have been involved to pull that off, like, there's got to be one of them that would be willing to sell a $100 million exclusive book deal story to somebody. To me, that's hard to imagine a scenario where there isn't at least one person that's willing to do that. The second thing is that missing minute or so of footage that nobody's been able to explain, who's in a position that actually could explain it. Any thoughts on that?
Those are the very same reasons why I'm so torn between the 3 probabilities myself.
Yeah.
Because nobody is explaining that missing 90 seconds to 2 minutes, right? Nobody's explaining it, but that doesn't mean that nobody can explain it. It just means nobody is explaining it. So why? Yeah. And how is there footage before and after but not during? Just imagine the amount of effort it would take to make that happen. Yeah. Not to mention, once it occurred, letting the investigation discover that there is a minute and a half or 2 minutes missing. Like there's just enough error there that shows that it's imperfect, that shows that it's flawed. So there were definitely human beings doing something, but why and how and to what extent?
Yeah. I mean, it's all, again, tough to rationalize, and I think, another thing that further complicates it for me, and I'm curious to get your take on, is both Kash Patel and Bongino, leading up to being put in the positions they're in, had pretty significant positions on he didn't kill himself. There's way more to the story. We're going to release the list, yada, yada. Now they get into these positions and it's, nope, killed himself and there's nothing else to see here, move on. Even the president did that, which, he ran on that.
Presidents, politicians, they always lie. They always run on one thing and then don't do it, right? The most famous example that we all talk about is no new taxes. We had a fucking president who lied on a stand after swearing to tell the truth. And that president, Bill Clinton, is still considered a hero by many people in the United States. So the idea that presidents don't tell the truth, come on. That's kind of a hollow argument that we can't really defend. And to think that Donald Trump, who's an experienced negotiator, an experienced businessman, who's controlled much of his fortune through the manipulation of the legal system, why do we think that this guy of all people is going to be the person who keeps their campaign promise at the end? He's going to do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of accomplishing the overall agenda that he's trying to accomplish.
I get that 100%. I think where for me personally, I separate that from policy is the nature of the crime. And I know that there's emotion wrapped into that, but that's the reality of it, is that if you say, hey, no new taxes, and then you're taxing, well, I get that. Shit happens, things change. For me, this feels different than that.
I think part of the reason it feels different also, I agree with you that there's the moral reprehension of the crime. But the other thing that we're not talking about that people need to understand is the way that the cabinet was built. The way that Donald Trump positioned the people who were loyalist to him. He didn't appoint people into places where they were the most qualified. He appointed people into the places where he needed the most loyalist support. And again, we shouldn't be surprised to see that the whole chain of command follows Donald Trump's administrative direction. Generally speaking, the whole chain of command follows the president's chain of the president's direction. We didn't really start to see that breaking down until the first Donald Trump presidency. But since then, especially after what he has learned from being president once, he is definitely not going to make the same mistakes being president the second time.
Yeah.